Welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast, your favorite place for strategies, stories, and insights from the world of market research. Brought to you by your host, Dan Fleetwood.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast. We have a very special episode today. We have Brooke Reavey on, and she'll be coming on to talk about survey fraud, academic trust, and then also the marketing research competition. So, Brooke, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So for those that don't know you or what you do, can you give a brief introduction and a little bit of background?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a marketing professor at Dominican University. I teach market research and I also teach digital marketing and a couple of other types of classes. But I got my start in market research. So I have my master's in market research from Temple. And I worked in market research for about 7.5 years before I went back for my PhD and started teaching.
Got it. So do you like teaching or do you like or doing research more? What's your favorite?
Good question. So the reason why I got into being in my PhD is that I get to still do research. I just get to do research on the topics that interest me, as opposed to the ones I'm being paid for to research. And I get to go in really deep. So I like that part.
Awesome. So what's the most energizing challenge or opportunity on your plate right now?
Yeah, great question. So obviously AI is kind of changing how we do everything in academia. And so, there's a lot of folks that are embracing it. And then there's also a lot of folks that are trying to resist it. And I kind of feel like I'm in a happy medium right now where I'm hopefully convincing my students that they don't want to outsource their brain. They want to make sure that they're using it and then having AI help them as like a type of a coach more than anything else. So that's been energizing. And then also, as you had alluded to, we're going to be talking about the marketing research competition, getting that up and running in the fall and having students across the country learn how to conduct a more modern type of marketing research study and to be able to work with industry professionals and a national brand is pretty cool. And aside from that, on a personal note, I've got a young dog. I'm starting agility training with him.
Oh, wow. That might be the most difficult, Brooke, Yeah, awesome. Cool. No, that's great. So survey fraud and academic trust. Now, I think in the research world outside of academia, when we think of survey fraud, we think of, bots coming to surveys and a bunch of data quality issues there. But when we think about it on an academic front, you've done a lot of research on this in the academic space. Can you kind of paint a picture for those who might not be familiar with what's happening right now related to academic trust and fraud in that space?
Sure. Yeah. So, there's multiple problems that are going on right now. In many spaces, we're going through a degree of anti-intellectualism. So we're getting a lot of grants that are taken away from us. There's a lot of money that's getting pulled back from universities that we would do stuff for different types of medical research and different types of hard science, as I like to call it, research. But we also have some issues going on where we have, the pressure to get tenure where you publish or perish is getting even more difficult. And so because of that, the incentive is there to cheat. And so since we have so many issues going on, and obviously with AI too, being able to write papers pretty well and be able to synthesize data very well, even though it still hallucinates quite a bit, we're running into a bunch of issues. As an editor of a journal, I can tell you that we're supposed to just trust everything that comes in with us. We've always been working on more of an honor system for since I think of the year 1100 or 1200, we've been working more or less on an honor system for getting stuff published as PhDs. But we're showing now that we really can't work so much on an honor system and that there are so many people that are using this in a malicious sense that there are a number of retractions that are going on within our journals.
Wow. So you said since 1100 or 1200. So for 1,000 years you've been able to trust,
yes.
But now you can't. That's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, it's you kind of have to be a little weird to get a PhD if you think about it. You have to be super energized. You have to be somebody who's very passionate about something. PhD programs are not easy. I like to refer to it as, it was like somebody repeatedly kicking me in my teeth for 5 years. And It doesn't get any easier when you become a professor and you have to just work on publications all the time. So it's been our job in society that was set up like I said between 1100 and 1200 was to provide knowledge and with wisdom, engage the public, and to disperse and diffuse knowledge that we've created, and also be able to challenge folks on what they're thinking.
Yeah, that's interesting. In terms of survey fraud, or not survey fraud, but excuse me, academic fraud. Do you think, you mentioned it was because there's a pressure to get tenure, and also obviously in the PhD programs, it's very rigorous. Do you feel like it's just like the ease of it and people are just kind of creatures of wanting comfortability and moving to comfort? Or do you think it's something different? I'm just trying to understand a little bit more around what you think is causing that. Is just the difficulty of getting tenure, the allure of getting tenure, and then also, I guess the side note is more of getting your PhD and just the difficulty around that. Is it just that, hey, there's this new tool and it's easy and people think it's going to, change the world for them? Is that it? Or what do you think?
So that's a good question. It's there's a lot of multiple external forces that are shaping what we're seeing. A lot of it comes from folks that are trying to publish in American or English only journals. So AI allows them this opportunity to write in English where, maybe they wouldn't have been able to pay a copywriter to translate something for them. American, regardless of what's going on, I want to make sure I'm not painting a bad picture. The vast majority of publications are still very much vetted and are okay. It's that we have folks that it's an honor, and it's very difficult to get published in an American journal, and a lot of our top journals within everybody's fields are based in the U.S. And so because of that, we are coming across with a lot of AI slop.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you had mentioned to me, and what surprised me, is that 11,000 articles, were retracted from Wiley last year because of fraudulent studies. What does this mean for like credibility in academic research, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, so there's for anybody who's interested, there is a database out there that's called Retraction Watch. I think it's actually retractionwatch.com. They have a database of over 60,000 journal articles across all fields that have been retracted over the years. And they're looking at and counting as to why. So they're trying to understand what's happening too. There's also a number of folks out there that look at social science research. And so they are, independently testing the findings that people are having so that there could be some degree of replication. The big company out there that it's actually not a company, it's a group of people called Data Coolata. What's happening is what we're seeing is the bulk of those journal articles were in the hard sciences. So it would be something like using an MRI from an article that was from years ago and then writing something completely new about it. And it's not the same authors. So what we were supposed to do in the way that our peer review system was set up was that it made sense, 100 years ago when there was people still working on typewriters, and it would take, like a year to write one article because of how long it would take to manually complete all these statistics for it. But now that we have so many journals that are out there, and we also have so many more publications coming through, peer review people, when we're doing peer review, it's impossible to keep up to date with everything that's going on with our discipline. And so what's happening is that we have some malicious actors that are taking these, taking something that might be online, and then they feed it into AI or whatever else, or just come up with some grand idea and write about another paper and submit it over to a different journal that is one that might be something that's lower ranked. And they are able to get it through because up until now, we don't really have a closed link system, which is very similar to like what we have in industry stuff, where all of our publications are not all together. All of our publications have to be indexed. And for our for our journals to be able to, and the publishers to be able to go through and look and make sure that something hasn't been plagiarized. We're not quite there yet from technology wise to make sure that things have not been completely plagiarized. So there's a lot of mixed efforts in there, but one of the other key things too is that depending on where the schools are located and what country they're located in, a lot of times, the minister of education might decide that, just kind of on a whim, all academics need to publish 2 articles per year, no exception, otherwise they don't have a job. And so when it comes down to, if you don't have a job or you just make this like small little ethical problem, like, oh, what's it matter? There's 60,000 articles out there right now. No one's going to notice, and then they have been getting caught. So sorry for the rambling excuse, but there is just a lot of things that are going on. And I shouldn't actually say, I should say it's a reasoning. There's just a ton of different variables that are happening and occurring that are influencing all this fraud that we're seeing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It doesn't seem like it's one thing, right? It's kind of runs the gamut from, you mentioned that, the ministers of education, is that what you call them?
Yeah.
Like they're mandating these things. And if you don't have a job, and your time is probably spent doing other things too. It's a little bit of adverse incentives, I think, or, so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, teaching is not easy. And teaching isn't just because you're spending maybe an hour or an hour and a half in the classroom a couple times a day. There are some people that have to teach, 6 or 7 classes. So that's a full-time job. And then they have to publish on top of it. They have all these other demands. They have PhD students that they have to manage. And yeah, it's very difficult.
Right. And then, I think you alluded to this, but with AI and, obviously making things easier, and with doing peer reviews, probably the sheer volume has gone up, right, as well, in terms of not only the fraudulent cases, but just the volume that you have to weed through. So is that another compounding problem on top of everything else?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, there has been an exponential distribution that's going on with publications. So it is harder than ever to get a tenure track job. Most universities now, we're starting in 2025. We're seeing something that's called the academic cliff. And the academic cliff was starting in 2008 with our first big recession of modern times. People started having fewer babies. And so because of that, there's just fewer people that are going to be going to college starting now. We've known this was going to happen for a while, and we've been preparing for it. But this was like this is the big start of it. And so because of that, there's few schools that want to offer tenure now because they can't necessarily guarantee that they're going to be able to keep the school open. And so the idea of tenure is that as long as the school's open, you have a job. And but if the school closes, then they don't. So we have a lot of schools and a lot of states now that are very reluctant to offer tenure because of all the grants that are getting pulled back by the various government bodies, and also all the issues that are going on right now with our Pell Grants, our FAFSA, and everything that's been happening within the U.S. system. And it's also, even though it's in the U.S., it's also in other countries too. In other countries, it's always been few and far between. We have a lot more students that go to school just because we have a lot more universities available. In general, we have a lot of issues with with fewer people, so fewer tenure track positions, and so because of that, getting tenure is even harder because there's more people competing for those fewer spots, and the number of publications in general have gone up because it used to be when I first started my PhD, that was not that long ago. It is almost it was 2008, so it's been almost 20 years, but I, had to go to the library and pull like stuff off the stacks and go and put the articles onto to get a photocopy. And now everything's online. And so when you have access to everything being online and not having to go through the catalog of stuff and then go through the end of the references and at the journal and keep looking through, there's just, it's getting easier and easier to get information at our fingertips, but it's also made it so that it's that much faster to publish.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's a multifaceted problem. I guess what I didn't think about is college is not offering tenure because of like the reduction in the amount of students just going because there's not as many students to go. Like
Yeah.
it's not something I thought about. But Brooke, I'll tell you, I went to a college fair last night with my daughter who's a junior in high school, and it was packed. So if that's any indication, I don't know, maybe it would have been more packed 5 years ago, but there were a lot of people, a lot of kids, and over 100 schools there. So it was crazy. But
That's good to hear.
yeah, yeah.
Means-
It was, yeah, it was definitely good. I guess this might be the $1 million or maybe $1 million plus question, but what's the solution? What do you think we do about it, or how do you take steps to help mitigate it?
Yeah, so there's a few issues that are happening. Allowing for fraud to happen is something that lots of journals have been discussing about how do we handle this. Publishers are also trying to figure it out. There's lots of conferences about how do we check for this information? How can we make systems be more open so that way we can see what's happening? But for the most part, what we're doing, at least in the social sciences and definitely in the hard sciences too, is that we have to what's called pre-register for the experiments that we're running, and then also for any kind of hypothesis that we might have. And we are also supposed to make our raw data available for anybody to be able to verify.
Right.
So while that sounds great, we run into other issues that have also happened that are going on with retractions. And so I've actually talked to a couple of res tech folks to see if they could come up with some solutions for this. There is a need for a paid solution out there where we can essentially trust that the Excel sheet has not been messed with.
Oh.
So the idea is what's happened is there was a student who she was at the University of Toronto. She did her PhD there, and then she became a professor at Northwestern. This is all in the Kellogg School of Business. And it turns out that not only was her, like the 3 articles that she got published in one of our big top journals was completely faked, but her dissertation was faked. And so the University of Toronto actually, not only did she get all of her publications retracted, but they actually rescinded her degree. And that's huge. Wow. And that's like a big deal. But when they figured it out, she just created all of the data. I mean, that's the other thing too, is there's something about massaging the data and making it do what you want it to do. But then there's just completely fabricating the data. And so what we need is we need to make sure that when somebody collects the data, that when they're downloading it from a Question Pro, that we can verify that is the actual file of what was downloaded. So obviously we have to be able to go through and eliminate outliers that make sense, but that's supposed to all be written up in our sampling and our methods part of our journals, and to explain why some sample was eliminated. And right now we don't have that. We just, again, it's honor system that someone's going to tell us why it happened and why they eliminated stuff. But we're seeing a lot of professors cherry pick the responses so that way it gets the results that they need, because we are incentivized to publish novel and very positive effects. And so, it's an issue that can potentially be fixed by ResTech. I can assure you that the journals, if it's good, I can assure you that at least the top journals would require the authors to use that, so that way they could ensure that there was some degree of transparency. Because right now we're just ensuring we basically just have to trust that the data that is being handed in was what was actually collected.
Sorry, Brooke, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's interesting to me because it is also a problem with just even on consumer studies, right? Because you have the issue with data quality and fraudulent data, and on even there, 30% of responses get cut out, but you're assuming those, or you're I guess making the best case that, hey, those are actually getting cut out because it's fraudulent data or there's data quality issues. But I guess I shouldn't be So surprised that people would cut out data just to help support whatever theory or whatever, whatever narrative they're trying to portray. So it's interesting there. And I don't think like a seal of approval would be that difficult, honestly. I mean, you could say like, hey, you maybe have to select reasons why data was cut out, but yeah, that's interesting. You may have just given us
an idea.
An idea.
Well, one of the things that happens though is that, I mean, if you think about it from a self-service or a DIY platform like Question Pro, once your author is downloading, or I guess you would say your user is downloading the data, it's hands off. And so how do you verify then that what they're using or how they collected it is real? So you would have, I don't know how you guys would add in anything to so that somebody can check against it, but.
Yeah, you got me thinking. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from back when I was working at TNS. I won't say the client name, but there was definitely some clients that had faked the data just to support their solutions and for being a project manager. So I can't say that it's the only time that's ever happened. That it only happens in academia.
Yeah, I'm sure it happens. More than we think. In terms of like, how do you? I know you're focused on the academic side, but you also have like, I guess a foot or maybe a toe in the water on the consumer side. What do you think is like, I mean, obviously there's a rise in, fraud and data quality issues there. Is there any like spillover or crossover with what's happening on the academic side and on I'll call it the consumer side. I know that's pretty vague, but just to generalize, do you see any like spillover or any commonality there?
Yeah, so most professors do not realize that that there's fraud that exists.
Oh, wow.
So that's just not something that is discussed. It still hasn't. I've got an article that's been under review, and hopefully we'll see the light of day soon. That addresses this, and it helps to work, with explaining to a lot of the researchers in the academic space beyond marketing how to prevent fraud. But we deal with very inattentive respondents when we have behavioral labs, because oftentimes what happens is we force our students to complete surveys for research credit for the semester. And so if you're forced to do something and you have no care, you're not going to pay attention. You're just click, 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 done. And then we also have folks that are going on consumer panels that they don't realize that if they're offering $2 for a 10-minute survey, that most of those folks are fake. So, and once you get into getting folks to be CEOs and whomever else, like there's a lack of understanding and there's a lack of transparency as to knowing what data works and what doesn't work. It's the whole panel stuff is not easy for academics to understand. And, even as much as I've been talking to researchers, my eyes glaze over because I still am like, wait, what? How do I know that this is real? Like, how can I really verify that this person's real?
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. What do you think goes in like restoring the trust? Just that, hey, there's these safeguards in place and things like that? Or I know you mentioned you guys are working on the academic side, but overall, like, is it more safeguards? Like, what do you think would help instill more of that trust in the data that is collected?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it also, we need to also point to some of our government relations. So the CDC right now is, there's a lot of folks that are very scared about the information that's going to be coming out of the CDC, just because the number of the career scientists are getting fired and they're getting replaced by folks that have opposing views. And so we have to replicate the data. So when you can get your hand on a data set, if you are a client and you receive something, if you're not sure of the results, please ask for the raw data and run it yourself. Even at least some of the correlations or something that's kind of easy peasy. If you don't know how to do the advanced models. And then for our academic space, for one thing, we need to work on our peer review system. It's just really bad right now. It's broken. It's we're asking too many people to do too many things, and we're setting them up essentially for failure.
Right.
And so that needs to get fixed. But we also need, again, to have more transparency and let people have access to the raw data. One of the things that's supposed to happen within the scientific method is that we're supposed to be able to replicate results. But no one wants to publish replicated results because they're boring, and what's the point? But that's essential for the scientific method. If we can't replicate, if that should be something that's discussed, is that if you can't replicate it, then you have to, there should be some sort of a flag to that. We've seen that a lot. So that there were quite a few big name people from Harvard that are in a lot of trouble because no one was ever able to replicate the results. And they sounded great. And so everyone was really super excited about it. And it seemed like it was an easy thing to implement. So like the marshmallow test that you guys may have heard, it's never been replicated. If you're not sure if you are familiar with the marshmallow test, but this is where you get, I think it's like a 3 or 4 year old, and you sit them down and say, here's one marshmallow. If you can wait 10 minutes, I'm going to give you 2 marshmallows. And then that was supposed to show who was going to be successful in life because they have willpower and blah, blah, blah.
I've heard this. Yeah, that's all right.
But it's never been replicated. So it was like a wonderful idea, but no one's ever been able to replicate it in the lab. And there have been a number of situations like this that we keep coming across too.
It's interesting because what does it show? Delayed gratification kind of deal, right? Like if I wait, I can get more. Yeah. Interesting. Well, Brooke, you've opened my eyes to a lot of things regarding to fraud and academic trust. So I appreciate that. I want to switch now to the marketing research competition. So what is it? What inspired you to launch it, and how can people help you?
Yeah, sure. So the marketing research competition is a national competition that is co-sponsored by Quirks and IA. And we provide prize money, and we also connect students to national brands to run a marketing research study. So one of the key things that I noticed as a professor, like when you do the when you do each semester project, it gets really difficult. So you can have students go out and collect data on campus or with their friends, but then like no one's really interested. They do it the last week of class. It just always felt like pomp and circumstance for no reason. And so we wanted to create something that would allow students to get excited about the projects, to learn about what an RFP really looks like, and to kind of sit down and think about all the different ways that they can collect the data on their own. And so we created the marketing research competition. We're going into our 3rd year of running it, and it just is starting. We're going to be launching the case study on hopefully a little bit before September 30th. We're making sure that everything's okay with our clients and that their legal teams are okay with what we're going to be doing. But aside from that, we're always in need of judges and mentors for the students. And so what I do is I align a mentor for with each class. So that way they can help the students and provide some, I guess, industry and modern ways of collecting data and how to do the storytelling. Because as much as I love my professor friends, most of us, if we did work, it's been a really long time since we worked in the industry, or we just are overwhelmed with the number of teams that we have to oversee. So it's nice to have a mentor. And it's also just a good way for the students to connect with somebody in the field and learn more about what their day-to-day life is like.
That's cool. So if people want to know more about it, is there a website or reach out to you, or how do you want people to find out more?
Yeah. So marketingresearchcompetition.com. I'm happy to put it online if you want. We've got a website, and folks can sign up as a mentor or a judge. And I'm always available for answering questions on LinkedIn or wherever else.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. I'll have to check that out myself. So as we start to wrap up, I'm curious, like a piece of advice you'd give someone looking to strengthen their approach to research. Anything come to mind there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I'm always pushing understanding and learning more about analytics. I think that the more we are growing as a field and understanding how to analyze the different types of data out there, that's a good one. And there's tons of YouTube videos out there for that. I'm always learning, and I'm always keeping an eye out for free webinars that are going to teach me how to do something differently. I'm going to be teaching a workshop in a couple weeks about AI analytics and text analytics with some of my other professor friends, but it's also something that I've taught to the IA Chicago folks too. So,
yeah, that's great. Yeah, AI analytics is definitely something that's going to change things, I know. So it's super interesting. Awesome. Well, hey, Brooke, if listeners want to connect with you and learn more about the work you're doing, where should they go?
LinkedIn is a good one. So my handle is @Brooke-Reavey.
Awesome. Hey, Brooke, thanks so much for joining the show today. Really interesting. And you've got my head spinning, so I appreciate that.
Great. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And if you like this, feel free to subscribe, like, follow. It helps the show out. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.